Hello, my name's Ben Gardner. I'm going to be going through some tips on how to reduce your sitting time while you work from home. The reason that this is important is that while we've known for over 50 years that the amount of time that people spend in physical activity is good for them, it's only really been the past 10, 15, 20 years that evidence has started to emerge suggesting that the time that people spend sitting is bad for them. And sitting has been related to a whole host of physical and mental health problems and even premature death. And importantly, the impact of sitting on our health is thought to be largely independent of the impact of physical activity, by which I mean that you could be someone who is generally quite physically active, but if when you're not being physically active, you're spending your time sitting for long periods on your sofa, for example, then you're not doing all you can do for your health. And really what people should be doing is taking regular physical activity and also trying to limit the amount of time that they spend sitting down. Now, there's already some public health concern around this with regards to office workers, because research, including our own, has shown that office workers tend to spend around 2/3 of their workday and their entire waking day sitting down. But of course, if you work in an office, then you have to get to that office. And it's been shown that just the act of going to work, possibly taking a lunch break and going home again, that all involves or incurs some kind of physical activity. So your step count will increase around those times. But of course, if you're working from home exclusively, as we all are at the moment, then you're not going to have those benefits. So it's all the more important that we think about ways to reduce our sitting time. So we don't really have very sophisticated national guidance on this. National guidelines that do now mention sitting really just tell us that we should reduce the amount of time that we spend sitting. Now, slightly more sophisticated guidance comes from an expert consensus statement that was published 5 years ago. And the authors argued that really what we should be looking to do is reduce our sitting time by taking regular breaks from our sitting. And what should we be doing then when we take those breaks? Well, really, the best thing that we could do is engage in some kind of physical activity. Now, I'm sure you know about the workouts and home workouts and so on that are available on YouTube and so on. But of course, it's entirely unfeasible to suggest that people should do a workout every time they take a break from their sitting if we want them to take regular breaks from their sitting. Instead, what the authors argue is really what we should be trying to do is just break up our sitting by standing up more. And it's suggested that maybe you should just stand and stretch, or maybe you should stand and go for a walk, for example, around your kitchen, go and put the kettle on, something like this. Alternatively, what may work better is to try and identify things that you can do while you're standing, work tasks that you can do so that you can do standing work. Also, it's important to point out that if you are standing, you shouldn't stand still for long periods either, because that has some kind of negative health impact. So really what you should be doing is engaging in what people call active standing, which is kind of moving from side to side or bobbing up and down on your heels, just so that you're standing but you're also moving at the same time. Now, what does this look like in practice? Well, I'm going to assume that you don't have one of these fancy hamster wheels, but maybe you have something more like this, which is a sit-stand desk. Well, this is called a sit-stand workstation. It's something whereby you can adjust the height of the workstation so that you can work while you're sitting down at your computer, but you can also raise the workstation so that you can stand while you're working at your computer too. And this is really important because it's been shown that actually one of the main health benefits that comes from reducing sitting doesn't actually come directly from reducing sitting. It comes from the sit to stand transition. In other words, the physical movement of going from sitting to standing is really good for your body, and it may be that actually confers health benefits on people who do regularly stand. But sit-stand workstations are really good just because they allow you to carry on doing what you'd normally be doing while you're standing up. But of course, it may be that you don't have one of these at home. And in fact, as I'm talking through this now, I'm actually talking to my laptop, which is on a chair on top of a table. It's a kind of makeshift sit-stand workstation. And I'd encourage you to think about whether you could create your own one of these as well. Essentially, just make sure that you have something that is ergonomically sound so that you can stand up straight while your arms are out at 90 degrees to the rest of your body while you're typing. So what should we be doing in summary to try and break up our sitting time? Well, first of all, try and reduce your sitting to no longer than 20 minutes at a time. And as I said, ideally what you do at the end of those 20 minutes is some kind of physical activity. It doesn't have to involve a workout or anything that's strenuous. Just stand up and stretch. Or if nothing else, just stand up. But as I said, you could think about going to the kitchen, make yourself a cup of tea, just walk around the house a little bit. But of course, the problem that people sometimes have with this, we've shown in our research, is that they often forget to stand. Because if you're engrossed in your work, you're not going to prioritize this idea of standing up regularly. So we've been doing some research that looks into ways in which people can remember to stand. And there's all sorts of stuff out there on the internet. You can download stuff that will effectively well, there are some that will just give you simple reminders to stand at regular intervals, but there are others that will actually shut down your computer at regular intervals and kind of force you to take a break because you literally cannot do any work. Now, personally, I don't like these, the reason being that when I'm working, I'm in the flow of work. I'm not thinking about sitting and standing. And what our research has shown is that actually people are kind of more receptive to this idea of standing up if they break down their work tasks into chunks and then they try and give themselves a mental reminder to stand at the end of each of those work chunks. The reason that we think this is more effective is people are generally more likely to remember when they've finished a work task and they've cleared one task out of their head, they're more likely to remember to stand than if you try and prompt them to stand while they're, at say a regular time interval, but they're midway through a task. The other thing you can do is just try and identify tasks that you can do while standing up. And then every time you do that task, try and stand up to do it. So a perfect example of this, if you have a phone call related to work, or if you have a video call, try and take those while standing. We've shown time and time again that this can lead to the formation of a habit. In other words, if every time you start doing this task, you stand up, then this creates a mental association that will mean that every time, after a while, each time you encounter that cue or that particular task, you're more likely to stand up, and it will become second nature to you. You won't have to remember to do it anymore. It will just become something that you do automatically. Then there are small kind of nudges that you can do. One of my favorites is to try and drink from a small cup. The reason being that if you have a small cup of water next to you, when you've drunk it, you're going to need a refill. So what are you going to do? Well, you're going to have to stand up and go to the kitchen and refill it again. So that kind of incurs more sit to stand transitions. And of course, it means that you're going to have to go to the toilet more often as well. So 2 birds, 1 stone. Okay, that's everything from me. Here's my email address and my Twitter handle if you want to get in touch with me. Thank you very much for listening.